Someone like to make a motion to return the regular board meeting to public session, please? Mrs. Leatherbarrow, thank you. Is there a second? Mrs. Beeger, all in favor? Motion carries unanimously. We'd like to call the regular board meeting to order. All board members are present. I would like to ask Mr. Mecca, please, if you wouldn't mind leading us in the reciting the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be advised that in the event of a fire emergency and an evacuation should be necessary, an alarm will sound. Please note all the marked emergency exits and evacuate well away from the building. At this time, we request that everyone turn their cell phones and other electronic devices to silent or mute, please. The events last week in Santa Fe High School in Texas have once again brought tragedy to American schools. Once again, we mourn the senseless taking of children's lives. Despite the relentless media coverage, our schools are some of the safest places on earth. But without any changes from our elected officials, they are unlikely to stay that way. We need to have adequate physical security at all of our buildings, but we also need to pay attention to the emotional safety and well-being of our students, teachers, and staff as well, as prevention is key. I never anticipated that I would have to ask for a moment of silence due to horrific tragedy, and yet, for the second time in less than 3 months, here I am asking for it again. So at this time, I would like to ask, please, for 10 seconds of complete silence, 1 second for each of the 10 victims of the May 18th school shooting in Santa Fe, Texas. One thing we can do is to pay attention to how others are feeling. Please take some time to check in with your fellow student, your friend, your acquaintance, and see the world from their eyes. Strive to do a kind act to a stranger daily and put a smile on that person's soul. Thank you. Would someone like to make a motion to add an addendum to the personnel consent agenda and to approve the agenda as amended? Mrs. Van Cise, thank you. Is there a second? Dr. McClary, thank you. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Dr. Martzloff.
Thank you, Mr. LeMay. Williamsville's music program is second to none. Our talented and dedicated teachers are passionate about music, and even more so, are passionate about working with students to help them become the best they can be. Again, this year, Williamsville has received the Best Community for Music Education Award, a national designation. Michael Russo, Instructional Specialist for Fine Arts, is here to tell us more about this noteworthy achievement and will introduce a performance by one of our talented students. Mr. Russo?
Thank you, Dr. Martzloff, and good evening, everyone. To be considered for a Best Community for Music Education designation, districts must complete a survey and answer detailed questions about funding, graduation requirements, music class participation, instruction time, facilities, support for the music program, and other factors in the community that affect access to music education for all students. As with any survey document, these factors only represent a fraction of what goes on each and every day in our district. Recognition as a Best Community for Music Education is an honor and a reflection of our community that values excellence. We have students who want to be the best, families who help them to strive for the best, teachers who work tirelessly day in and day out to bring out their best, and administration and Board of Education who do everything in their power to provide the best. Everything we do to support students and provide opportunities helps them succeed. The best way I can demonstrate this is by introducing the next recognition on the agenda, Williamsville East High School senior Haru Suzuki. Haru was recently awarded the Friends of the Amherst Symphony and Williamsville Rotary Club Scholarship intended for a senior from any school in the town of Amherst or village of Williamsville who plans to major in music. The competition for this scholarship is strong. There are many talented and deserving students across all of these schools. To succeed in receiving this recognition is an outstanding achievement. Haru, equally talented on flute and piano, will attend Case Western Reserve University in the fall, where she plans to major in music education with concentration in both of those instruments. Tonight she will share her piano talents with us. Please welcome to the podium and piano, Williams E. Senior Haru Suzuki.
Thank you so much for having me here today to play for you guys the piano. I will be playing Fantasy Impromptu Opus 66 by Chopin.
therapy music.
Are there any board acknowledgements this evening? Mrs. Van Cise?
I actually have several. But I'd like to start off by acknowledging the Casey Middle School teachers, Mrs. Kelly Murray and Mrs. May, and all the students who participated in the first student-driven craft fair. They were able to design and create their own crafts, and they were able to sell them. So this ended up being a huge success, and it was just another great way for students to be expressive through their creativity while they were learning and having fun. I also really felt the necessity to acknowledge our ADs in our district. I recently had to work with all 4 ADs regarding the turf field, from Chris Muchika, Adam Erickson, Jeff Leibrock, and Stephen Frenzy. And I was truly so impressed by their professionalism and their accommodating spirit. The immense amount of time and effort they put in daily behind the scenes is just absolutely so appreciated. And I just think that they're such true assets to our district. So I felt like I needed to really send kudos to them. And lastly, I would like to acknowledge our unified basketball team under the awesome coaching of Dan Greiner. I recently attended a unified basketball game. It was against Lockport, so I went and stood in the middle. No. And I got to tell you, it was just outstanding to see this team and the opportunity that it presented to see these students working together and forming these partnerships is just heartwarming. So I am so happy that Williamsville now has unified basketball, and I know the intention is that it will continue to grow. So I would just like to do a shout out to the unified basketball team.
And I have to second that notion. I've attended several of those games as well, and it's mind-numbing, the camaraderie, the compassion that these students have for this. So any board member that hasn't had a chance to attend, I would say you've only got, I think, a week left or so. I believe the playoffs, they go next Tuesday and next Thursday, if I'm not mistaken. So time is running out, but it's definitely worth it. Any other board acknowledgements? Yes, Mrs. Beeger.
I'd like to acknowledge Mrs. Lynn Carey for all of her organization and hard work around our budget vote on Election Day. Thank you so much. I know it was your first year serving in this role as our clerk, and I know that that is a very, very long day, and you did a beautiful job organizing from what I saw. So thank you very much for all of your efforts, and everyone else on behalf of the district that helped so many student ensembles and people volunteering and working. So thanks to all, but particularly you, Mrs. Carey, for all of your work.
Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Beeger.
Any other acknowledgements? Okay, Mrs. Beeger, would you please read the board's public expression statement?
I would be happy to. Welcome to all who have come to observe this regular board meeting. Per policy 1510, the board has set aside 30 minutes for public expression, a time when we invite members of the community to share ideas and concerns with us. Each person is given up to 3 minutes in which to address the board. You will be signaled with a yellow flag at 2.5 minutes so that you can conclude your remarks. This is a meeting held in public rather than a public meeting, which means we will not be engaging in a dialogue with members of the community this evening. Rest assured, we are listening carefully and we take seriously what you have to say. I would also like to ask that you demonstrate respect for us and for one another by speaking to the issues, giving ideas and sharing your opinions, but not engaging in personal attack. Thank you for your cooperation. And there is no one signed up for our public expression. Is there anyone interested that would like to come speak this evening? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Would someone like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda and addendum as presented? Mrs. Leatherbarrow, thank you. Is there a second? Mrs. Beeger, any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. I would like to thank the following retirees for the service to the district. Mary Ann Giambra, South High School Senior Clerk Stenographer for 29 years of service. Karen Miller, Maple West Elementary School Teacher Aide for 32 years of service. Patricia Morin, South High School Teacher Aide for 17 years of service. Diane Parker, Transportation Head Bus Driver for 41 years of service. Caroline Perry, Transportation Supervisor for 29 and a half years of service. Joe Petco, North High School Cleaner for 45 years of service. And finally, Ellen Schwab from Casey Middle School, a teacher aide for 24 years of service. Thank you. Would someone like to make a motion to approve the minutes of the special board meeting and public hearing of the budget held on May 3rd, 2018? Mrs. Van Sice, is there a second? Dr. Benader, thank you. Are there any corrections or additions to these minutes? Okay, all in favor? Okay, motion carries unanimously. Upcoming events. June 7th is the 40th annual dinner at Salvatore's. It is in conflict with our PTSA council dinner. However, would the board like to still create and donate a basket for this event in our absence? Do note that if we do agree to doing this, I would have to come out of the Sunshine Fund, which is currently sitting at the balance of 0. So we would have to fund the Sunshine Fund. Anyone? Mr. Mecca, yes.
I think we should make a basket and re-up our Sunshine Club memberships, whatever form that's going to take.
Okay. Mrs. Leatherborough?
I'm willing to put the basket together if one of you would be willing to drive it out to West Seneca.
That would be fine. I don't remember the hours. It has to be there during a certain time, if I remember right from that email, but we can, yeah, Lynn can look at that. Okay, thanks. Any other comments, questions, concerns on that? I'm fine with Mrs. Leatherborough. She did it last year. I think she did an amazing job on the basket, so. Mr. Mecca?
Sounds good to me. I'll, provided that I can make the time frame that's specified, I wouldn't mind driving it out.
Okay. You want to buy tickets, don't you, still? Put your name on them and thought so.
Wish. I always win.
Any other concerns or questions or comments on that? I know it is typically on the Sunshine Fund. We re-up that ideally after the July 1st reorg meeting, or at least after the July 1st meeting, so that the new candidates or board members will have an opportunity to fund it. I would probably suggest that we just re-up it now, and then when Eric joins the board here come July, we'll ask him for some funds. I don't recall if anybody here remembers. Was it 25 that we all donated and put in? Okay. Yeah, Mrs. Leatherborough?
For the purpose of the basket, if everybody wants to put in 5 for now, that will be fine. It's a good, decent basket.
I would say at the very least, let's get the 25 in the fund. Now, at least in case. I'll leave that to the district clerk. She can email all of us and work that out, the details of that out. Thank you. Does anyone else have anything to report under the Erie County Association of School Boards? No. June 26, 2018, we have the complimentary member reception for the New York State School Board Association. This is occurring at Delaware Mansion. I show that myself, Mr. Meyer, Mrs. Leatherborough, Mrs. Beeger, and Dr. McClary are all affirmative for attendance. Mrs. Van Sice, you were still a maybe the last time. I don't know if that's changed or not yet. Are there any other board members that would like to attend this event? And Mrs. Van Sice, I'm assuming we're still a maybe?
Is that Tuesday night?
June 26th, I'll tell you in 2 seconds here.
Yes.
My computer computer's going a little slow. June 26th is the last Tuesday of June, yes.
I believe it's a no.
Leaning towards no, okay?
Mr. Lemay, I just wanted to point out that the invitation from NISBA said it was open to the whole leadership team as well.
Was it? Okay. Well, are there anybody else from the leadership team? Dr. Martzloff or any of the assistant superintendents? Would you like to join in on this?
Maybe we could get the info to them because they might not have it.
I'm sure we can forward it to you. It's Tuesday, June the 26th. I don't remember the start time. I want to say it's 6 o'clock at night. And it's just a reception. So we'll get you that info. If you can, let Mrs. Clark know here, please, or Mrs. Carey know, please. Does anyone else have anything else to report under the New York State School Board Association? Nope. Okay.
6 o'clock to 8 o'clock.
6 o'clock to 8 o'clock. Thank you. Would someone like to make a motion to accept the results of the annual district vote held at North High School, 1595 Hopkins Road, Williamsville, New York, 14221, on last Tuesday, May the 15th, 2018, as presented? Mrs. Van Cise, is there a second? Dr. McClary, any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions, okay.
No, I'm in favor.
You are in favor? Okay, motion carries unanimously. I would like to thank the Williamsville community for supporting and approving the budget for the 2018-2019 school year. The following board members have been elected for a 3-year term beginning July 1st, 2018 and concluding June 30th, 2021. Myself, Sean P. LeMay, Eric Borenstein, and Mark Mecca. Mrs. Carey, would you like to add anything?
I would. I would like to thank the board candidates, PTSA Council, the facilities crew, IT, child nutrition, student volunteers, and the musicians that were there that day, the inspectors, North High School staff, and district office staff for a team effort and assisting in many ways leading up to and on the day of the vote, and for much documented information for me to follow from Mrs. Serafin. Thank you all.
Thank you, and I know we had some hiccups that day and you adjusted on the fly, and I really appreciate that. Thank you again for all that hard work. The South graduation will be on Saturday, June 23rd, 2018 at South High School at 6 p.m. Who is available to attend? June 23rd, Saturday, 6 p.m. Anyone? I know I can attend. I will be there. Can any other board members?
I believe I can, but is that something I can follow up with the district clerk for or no?
You most certainly can, and we'll bring it up again at the next board meeting to
Thank you.
confirm. Were there any maybes? Mr. Mecca?
Maybe, yeah.
Maybe? Mr. Meyer, should I put you down as a maybe?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other maybes? Okay, so 1 yes, myself, and 2 maybes. Okay. I will be glad to take on the role of speaking unless somebody else would like to speak, but since they're maybes, I'm going to guess I've got the role, I've got the job. Now we have 2 more graduations. The North High School graduation will be on Sunday, June the 24th at UB Center for the Arts. That one starts at 10 a.m. in the morning. Who can attend that one? Mrs. Beeger. Who else? Dr. McClary. Who else?
I'd like to continue saying maybe because then I can't be pinned down as a speaker.
If it's any consolation prize, I'll volunteer for all 3. Still a maybe?
Maybe.
Okay. Who else? Obviously, I just kind of put my own name there, so yes, I will be attending. Anyone else on the maybe or yes list? Okay. If something changes, let us know. Again, we'll bring this up at our next board meeting. I guess they really need to know this information as soon as possible. So as soon as you can convert your maybe into a yes, please don't wait till the next board meeting. I guess it has to do with programs going to print. So they want to make sure they can do this as soon as possible. So again, I'm happy to take on the role of speaking at this. East High School graduation, same day, same location. This one occurs at 3:30 in the afternoon, though. Who's able to attend that one? I'll start the yes list and say myself.
I'm a maybe.
Maybe. Who else?
Maybe.
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 I see a growing trend here.
I'm sorry, I'm a no, but I'm away from
Okay.
June 21st to June 26th or 7th,
Okay.
Seattle.
Next year, I'm going to make you do all the speeches and, okay.
I'm happy to see weekend.
Happy to take on the speech for North. You don't want to do all three?
I doesn't bother me at all. I write one speech and
I
I
enjoyed it
modify it
last year.
slightly for all of them, but
I enjoyed it last year. I don't mind doing
if you'd like to do North, I'm more than fine to let you do it.
it. Okay.
So we'll put you down. So Mrs. Beeger will do the speech at North. Right now, we only have one yes for the East graduation and 3 maybes. Meyer, McClary, and Mecca, correct? So then I think by default, I guess I'll be the public speaker. That sounds great. Again, please let us all know as soon as possible, you maybes you. Dr. Martzoff, would you like to give us your community update, please?
Thank you, Mr. Lemay. First of all, I want to say thank you to the Williamsville Central School District community for coming out and voting and supporting the school district's 2018-19 adopted school budget. The budget passed by an 80% margin, and I think it speaks to the excellent work that goes on throughout our school district and within our community, and we appreciate everyone's support with that. I also want to say congratulations to those board members that were elected, Mr. Lemay, Mr. Mecca, and Mr. Bornstein. Congratulations to each of you on being elected to 3-year terms. I look forward to working with you in the future. And I also want to say thank you to Mrs. Carey. She's already been thanked this evening, but certainly for your first time, you did a terrific job on organizing the entire budget vote and Board of Election process, Board of Education election process. And we appreciate all your hard work with that, your teamwork. You had a whole team of people working to make it happen. So thank you for your efforts in that regard.
Thank you, Dr. Martzoff.
You're welcome. And that's all I have this evening.
Okay. Would someone like to make a motion to take the revised code of conduct from the table for a second reading and adoption? Mrs. Beeger, thank you. Is there a second? Mrs. Van Cise, appreciate it. Are there any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Someone like to move the second reading and adoption of the revised code of conduct? Mrs. Beeger, second. Mrs. Van Cise, appreciate it. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Dr. Martzoff, would you like to introduce the Wellness Council report, please?
Yes, this evening we're going to share some highlights with the Board of Education and our school community around the wellness report. And I will turn it over to Dr. Sierri, who will introduce some of our guests who will be presenting this evening. Dr. Sierri.
Thank you, Dr. Martzoff. We're pleased this evening to just share a few highlights from the wellness report. As you know, the report is pretty lengthy. It's approximately 40 pages and is in your board packet. So we're really only going to touch upon a few things this evening. I'm pleased to share with you or introduce to you my colleagues who are here tonight. Nancy Foltz is our social worker from Heim Elementary, Keith Gordon, social worker from Heim Middle School, and Cheryl Goldstone, school counselor from South High School. And this is just a representation of our elementary, middle, and high programs, but again, the robust the robust nature of the wellness programming across the district is most appropriately captured by the Board of Education report that you have available to you. So I'm going to begin with a quick overview, just again touching upon a couple of topics that are district-wide initiatives. You are all familiar now, and there's so many things that I'm not going to go into detail. Many of these items you've heard about before, sources of strength being one example. You've also heard us reference repeatedly the 40 developmental assets, the Search Institute, the survey that we administer every other year to 8th, 10th, and 12th graders. So those are the elements I won't go into a lot of detail tonight. As you know, the Search Institute in 1990 released a framework for 40 developmental assets. There are 20 internal assets, 20 external assets, and they identify a set of skills, experiences, and relationships and behaviors that enable young people to develop into successful and contributing members of society. And just to highlight a couple really quick key points with regard to this, is if you think about the power of the assets, assets are able to promote positive behaviors and attitudes. So the more developmental assets a student has, the more likely they are to exhibit thriving indicators. And things that we're talking about under that umbrella are things like exhibiting leadership, maintaining good health, valuing diversity, succeeding in school. They also protect students against high-risk behaviors. And what are we talking about there? Engagement with substances, alcohol use, violence, illicit drug use, sexual activity. So the assets are a powerful framework for us. We talk about them all the time. We look to make sure that our initiatives are linked back or crosswalked to the 40 developmental assets every time we're thinking about what we're doing with our work in the district. You all are also very familiar with social emotional learning and our mindfulness practices, the initiative that we've had in the district across the past several years. I will share with you, you may have seen that there was a New York State Safe Schools Task Force, and the recommendations that they offered our district is very well positioned to respond to the recommendations offered by the task force, which include focusing on social emotional learning to help students learn the essential skills that affect every area of their lives, including how to understand and manage emotions and how to establish and maintain positive relationships. So we're already engaged in that work. I'm happy to also report that in August 2016, New York State was identified as one of 9 states to participate in the cohort of the Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning, with CASEL's Collaborative States Initiative. And again, what New York State is working on is the development of social emotional learning benchmarks, development of a guidance for K-12 schools to support social emotional learning implementation, and ways to incorporate changes to higher education programs leading to certification. You also are very familiar with the fact that Linda Lantieri, who's been working with us for the past several years with her IRP curriculum, is also a founding member of CASEL. So we are in a good place in terms of social emotional learning and the work that everyone across the district has engaged in. In addition, sources of strength highlighted in your report, you're familiar with that. We also have had the opportunity with regard to social sources of strength for 2 of our current adult advisors to be trained to serve as the trainers. So that has been very beneficial for the district because it will also position us in a good place to implement at the middle school level. And so discussions are underway for consideration of implementation next school year at middle school level. We do continue to maintain our partnership with the Suicide Prevention Coalition of Erie County. And one of the benefits that I will just share with you with regard to that partnership has been the opportunity to host a Train the Trainer in our district with a program that was recently developed to allow for training on a broad spectrum. Many of the trainings that were available in the past were very lengthy and didn't lend themselves to the natural types of structures we have in school districts to provide information to all individuals across our district. This particular training is about 45 minutes to an hour and can be accomplished within a faculty meeting or a professional development opportunity for bus drivers, for our Department of Nutrition and Food Service members, for facilities, for maintenance, for all of our teachers, our support staff, et cetera. And that is our plan. So we have had 4 of our members, district members, go to the training, and we have a planning meeting coming up to talk about how we're going to reach all of those different audiences on suicide prevention, awareness of warning signs, and then referral. We also actually today was day 2 of 2-part series of training on mental health first aid. And so we had 2 groups going. We were able to offer that within the district. And so all of our school psychologists, social workers, counselors participated. Group 1 just finished up today. Group 2 will start next week. And just to highlight a couple of other things, Safe and Civil Schools, we are fortunate enough to have been selected to participate in a foundations program training. And 2 of our middle schools are participating in that right now. Our hope is that when that's completed, our other 2 middle schools will be able to join in. And that's basically what we're working toward. You're all familiar with the face-to-face in-service that we offered across the district to our staff, but also had planned a parent program. Unfortunately, that was not well attended, but it was indeed planned for our community. We also have collaborated with Roswell Park Cancer Institute on some professional development for our faculty and staff. We're continuously looking to appropriate programs for our students. And internet safety, you're familiar with as well, the initiatives there. We did partner with the Amherst Police Department, did a program for parents of middle school age children, which we pushed out through technology in 3 segments this school year. Also hosted Screenagers not too long ago. Several of our high school students at all 3 of our high schools participated in the Healthy Relationships Teen Dating Summit that was just held recently, and we're doing follow-up work along those lines. Also participated in Challenge to Change this year, and next year I'm pleased to report that Williamsville will be the host district, so we're doing our work in making arrangements to continue that initiative locally. Anti-bias education, we've also been engaged in all year, and we'll continue that work as we move forward into next year. Speak Up at School is one of the things we're focusing very closely on and have plans for staff development this summer. We continued our relationship with the Muslim Public Affairs Council and did some work with high school students presenting to middle school faculty, and have some plans to continue with that work next year. And then we also hosted training in the area of LGBTQ inclusive community and safe zones training. So we accomplished quite a bit. That just gives you a quick overview. Happy to respond to questions at the end of our presentation, but I do want to turn it over now to my colleagues and focus on elementary school. Nancy Pope.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the opportunity. It's always great to talk about what we're doing at Heim. One of the most important things that we try to do every year is to connect everything we do to the assets. So we select particular ones that we think are really important. For the last 3 years, we've really tried to work on community and family support. So we have started having a wellness night the first Friday of every school year, and happy to report, 3rd year was a charm. We planned what we thought was a really planful program and fell flat for 2 years in a row. However, the last year, we actually brought out most of our staff on the first Friday of the school year. Is pretty inspiring to me, and brought in about half of our school population. So what we realized was put community together with food, and you've got a winning combination. So food trucks was the answer this year, but what was great about it is parents and students got to meet each other and connect way before we did parent nights and things like that, where we talked in a more official way. They just really, the feedback this year, the kids were excited to know each other, and the parents were excited to just be able to sit and talk with people, especially people new to our community. We have a school in which we have a flowing population of kids moving in and out, and I think they really enjoyed that opportunity. So that was one of the most important things that we did. The second part I wanted to talk about is one of the SEL programs we've done for over 10 years now is the Life Skills program. It is a 8-week curriculum that we push into 3rd grade. All third grade get it, and I think one of the greatest things about it is we give an opportunity for everybody to talk about things such as self-esteem, conflict resolution, friendship, communication, and it really gives a great opportunity because we really want to push the assets of high expectations for growth, peaceful conflict resolution, self-esteem, and most importantly, resilient skills. We find that that's where it needs to start in order for kids to be able to go forward and make wise choices. On my second slide, I'm going to talk a little bit more about mindfulness and mentoring. So we talked a lot about how do we integrate mindfulness. I have a wonderful opportunity, and you'll see a little slide of my brand new mindfulness group. It is a group of third grade girls who really wanted to help mindfulness get out to everyone. So not everyone in our school is trained yet. However, we have a lot of teachers really trying some different activities, and this group of young ladies has just developed their own videos. What was interesting to me was, although we really wanted to work on personal power, focus, and self-regulation, these girls ended up planning the exact things I thought were wise to get started in a school, and they did that all on their own. So what we're hoping to do is, towards the end of the school year and the beginning of next year, start to show these small 1-minute mindful minutes that these girls have developed, and we're filming them. And so it's kind of a really cool way for them to start from the bottom up versus it always being the teacher down. And I thought it was a really nice way to share that with you. The last thing I've been doing for probably about the last 8 years is a mentoring program with my fourth graders. What we do is for 4 to 6 weeks, we train on how to be a mentor. And it's selected by teachers and also by parents asking for kids to participate in it. And what we find is that it's not always the kids who are best in school. It's the kids who really want to reach out and make a connection with other kids. So I train fourth graders. I have a third of my population right now that are working in kindergarten and first grade, a select group that are working in second grade, and they make a connection to either one student in the class or they make a connection to an entire class. And I think what we found is that our achievement has gone up, our attendance has gone up, and just the connection with younger kids and older kids in the building has made a big difference. How I really noticed this was a big difference this year is I also do a 5th grade transition program, and the kids who are going into 5th grade are less worried that 8th graders are going to bully them because they know that they're going to mentor them going in. And so it's a nice connection program. They understand, I've helped somebody, they're going to help me too. And so they said, oh, are we now going to be the kids being mentored? So I thought it was a really nice way to make that transition for them, and they made that connection. Thanks so much.
So I'm Keith Gordon. I'm from Heim Middle School. I'm the school social worker. The other wellness facilitator is Jennifer Moore. She's not here tonight, unfortunately. But I'm just going to start with some of the activities the wellness does throughout the school year. So one of the first things that we do is Old Heim Days. We have carnival-style games such as sports-related things, stack the washers, obstacle courses, a cakewalk. All the things that we do are created by our leadership Heim time in 8th grade, and those leadership kids then recruit other 7th and 8th graders to help them run the games throughout the night. So this activity promotes youth as a resource and responsibility. The next thing is we have Heim Gives Back / our food drive. So for Heim Gives Back, all the students pick projects with their Heim Times teachers to work on. Some of the projects that they did were made thank you cards for vets, tray favors, tissue box covers, and we gave those to the VA and nursing homes. Other things that Heim Times did is they made blankets and they made games for the Seneca Babcock Community Center. This activity promotes service to others and equality and social justice. We did Bald for Bucks again this year. We raised $28,000 for Roswell. It's the highest that we raised at Heim Middle School. Some of the ways that the teachers got involved in this is we had raffles, and we raffled off the first shave of students' heads, or our teachers' heads. And also for the other teachers that didn't want to get their head shaved, what they did is they raffled off, students could pick their color for the day. So we had students with orange hair, blue hair, purple hair throughout the day. Whatever the person that ran the raffle got to pick the teacher's hair color. So this activity promotes interpersonal competence and caring. Just this Friday, we finished Relax and Recharge Day. This was past Friday. the students got to pick 12, and they got 6 of the 12 activities. We had over 40 activities that the students could choose from, and they followed an alternate schedule throughout the day going to those 6 activities. We promoted positive coping techniques, mindfulness, and all as while doing school engagement. There were such activities as intro to acoustic guitar, Zumba, mindful journaling, running a 5K, and many more. Also then upcoming is we have the Casey Heim Bash. So what this is the 8th graders from Casey and Heim get together, because they're the ones that are going to be going over to North, and the leadership Heim Times at Heim Middle School, because Heim Middle School is the host this year, decided on what activities they would like to do this year to kind of get their future 9th grade class talking together and get to know each other. So this year we are doing lawn games outside as well as a movie. And then also we're having some members of the North National Honor Society and Link Crew come over to talk to the students about North High School. So this activity promotes youth as a resource and also gets them to think about their future as high school students and beyond. And then at the end of our school year, we are doing our fun run. This is the 28th year that we're doing the fun run. This year we're the charity that we chose to promote is Kaylee's Kindness, which is a charity that helps teenage girls cope with cancer. We have a 2-mile run, and then we follow that by a hot dog cookout and games and things like that. It's a great way to end the school year, all while raising money for a good cause and promoting a connection to school and a caring environment. And that's it. I'll turn it over.
Good evening. My name is Cheryl Goldstone. I'm one of the school counselors and one of 2 wellness facilitators at South High School. And it's been great actually to see what the elementary and middle school does. Things change a little bit at the high school. Probably one of our biggest initiatives is helping others. We really try to engage our high school students in helping one another. And something that is one of our largest projects is our Williamsville Central Schools food pantry. And I hope that everyone knows that we have that. The pantry was originally conceived and started by one of my former students about 5 years ago with the approval of Dr. Marsloff and the administrative team at District. And the student has since graduated and asked if I would keep the pantry going. It's a pretty wielding job, so knowing that I was undertaking this large job, I looked to others to help, and our wellness team, because they feel strongly about helping others, they've been a great support in helping with our food drives. Also, a number of our male teachers offered to take part in an epic beard contest, and you kind of see them sitting there with kind of a mean look on their faces. But what students did is they brought in canned goods, and for each canned good they brought in, they received a ticket. They voted for the teacher who they felt had the best beard, had grown the best beard, and the losers, the students whose name was on a ticket, we pulled them out of a little bag for each of the teachers, they got to select how the teacher had to shave their beard. So we had a question mark on the side of one person. We had half a beard off of one person. One of our teachers had a hard time growing a beard, so he let the students shave his head in the design they wanted. So he actually looked a little bit like one of the Three Stooges when they finished with him. But it really engaged our students in helping others. It's amazing now that we've had the food pantry for about 5 years, the students who really want to do more with it, and because of confidentiality, we can do the work at the school building, but we can't allow them over to the food pantry. But they are just wonderful about wanting to help with the pantry. We also have a family at South who secures turkeys for us at Thanksgiving time and turkeys and hams for us in the springtime for the holidays that fall in the spring. They have been wonderful and have been very supportive of our building. So a lot of our assets are used in engaging our students in activities to help others. We're happy at South to have a new fitness room. I know some people weren't thrilled about filling the pool in, and some of us were very happy about filling the pool in. But research shows that regular physical activity can have an impact on the cognitive skills, enhancing concentration and attention, and on the attitudes and academic behavior, all of which are important components of improved academic performance. So our wellness team looked at how we can encourage additional physical activity, particularly for those students who are not involved in organized sports. So we've arranged for some outside professionals to come in. We've had a yoga instructor who's actually one of our former students. We had a gentleman who teaches interval training for one of the large companies in the area. They've come in and they've demonstrated for our students. And to help pull students in, as we talked about food as an idea to bring people in, we actually were able to arrange free water bottles and lanyards and different sporting types of gear. And we have a wheel that we made, and students who come in and take part in these activities get to spin the wheel and win a water bottle or something. We have students now who have never taken part in any physical fitness outside of PE classes who now come in on a regular basis to the fitness center. So we feel like we have engaged these students in some physical activity that will help them to become lifelong learners even. Every Wednesday, we do what's called Wellness Wednesdays. We offer a walking program around the building before classes start in the morning. It's another way for our students to get engaged in some physical activity, and also to help with their concentration in the classroom when they leave after walking the building. We also put on a wellness fair every other year. We used to do it every year. We decided on opposite years to do a volunteer expo. So we expose the students on the opposite years to wellness vendors. We have the YMCA, the Amherst Police come in with their driving simulator. We have mindfulness presentation. And then on the opposite years, we do a volunteer expo where students are exposed to all the places in Western New York where they can volunteer. A lot of the companies come in, the zoo, help, and different activities. They come in and our students are exposed to those. And actually the companies have shared with us how many of our students have signed up to volunteer. And so for my next slide, every year there is a day called Unity Day. And each year our wellness team takes part in arranging activities for National Bullying Prevention Month, which is the month of October. Unity Day falls on a Wednesday in October. It's become the signature event of National Bullying Prevention Month. It started in the United States in 2011. And we really kind of jumped on shortly after it began. Each year we've planned different activities that focus on bullying behavior and how we can help students support others who have been hurt or harmed, treat others with kindness, be more accepting of people's differences, and help include those who are left out. This past year, we wanted to create a visual unity statement with the theme of challenging others to be kind. They hear so much about anti-bullying. We decided to use compassion, kindness, those words, to talk about what we were looking to do. So the student members of our wellness team became our MCs, and over our loudspeaker system, we were able to engage every classroom at the same time. Our class officers put together messages from each of their classes on how they would express kindness to others. And then during a third period class time, teachers passed out banners that looked a lot like this. And students working with their teachers wrote messages of kindness, and they had discussions about kindness. Our teachers shared with us that it was one of the best activities they had ever done with the students, that it really created a lot of conversation about kindness and treating others with kindness. Well, we ended up with 900 of these banners. Only one did I have to toss out that had an inappropriate comment on it. The rest of them were wonderful. As this one says, unity is strength. Be somebody who makes everybody feel like somebody. They were great messages. So we hung those down the main hallways of South. When you come in the front doors, that main hallway. We had so many, we had to go around the corner. The messages were so inspiring that our students asked if the banners could stay up past the month of October. And so we actually still had them up when we did a food drive in November. And people that came in for our parent conferences were able to see all the banners down the hallway. So each week that Unity Day falls in, I send a message out to our teachers every morning with some statistics on bullying and ways that they can help students in their classroom. And in fact, did you know that school-based bullying prevention programs decrease bullying by up to 25%, and more than half of the bullying situations stop when peers intervene on behalf of the student being bullied? So those are the messages that we're trying to send out each year when we take part in National Bullying Month and particularly Unity Day. If you get into South High School and you walk down the main hallway, there is a huge picture up. It says WSHS, and it's made of students. The students last year, we were able to form those letters. In about 3 minutes, we got everybody out on the football field. They formed the letters. Before we got those letters, they all held hands with each other and turned to their neighbor and gave them a message of support and kindness. So we continue with the Wellness Initiative to encourage being kind to others. And hopefully, I know that none of us are able to completely eliminate bullying, but I'm hoping that we have really put a dent in what happens and students know that they're there, or that we're there for them, and that they can come to see any of us if they feel that they are being bullied. So it was tough to really cut down what we're doing and be able to show exactly what the students do, but I think our students have done a great job in caring for others and showing kindness to others. Thank you for allowing me to share this with you.
Thank you, Keith, Nancy, and Cheryl for the highlights that you chose to share with the Board of Education today. And I'm just going to close with a quote from Linda Darling Hammond. I have no doubt that the survival of the human race depends at least as much on the cultivation of social and emotional intelligence as it does on the development of technical knowledge and skills. And we're here to respond to any questions you may have.
Questions by board members? Mrs. Leatherbarrow?
Thank you so much for your report. At our last community forum, there was a few parents who asked about what initiatives we were doing at the district at the different school levels to promote emotional and social wellness. And we tried our best to provide the examples we could think of, but wow, like I would love for this report to be readily available for parents to view and perhaps even push it out to them if that's a possibility through email. I did have one question regarding the diversity training that you mentioned. Did you say there was, did teachers receive some cultural diversity training in regards to different religions as well?
So we've done a number of different things. Some of our diversity work has been through the course catalog, so it's voluntary in terms of those that have an interest. At the middle school level, we did partner with Muslim Public Affairs Council, as we have in the past, and high school students actually presented to faculty about their experiences as a middle school student, the things that were helpful and the things that may have been challenging, so that we can target our efforts from a student perspective. We've also done some work on anti-bias education and really looking at teaching tolerances, social justice standards, and that has been done with our school mental health staff as well as some of our teaching staff. And we did on Staff Development Day host a program or present a program for all of our K-4 faculty. And then there's also been other opportunities through our catalog, and we're going to be continuing that work. We've also done similar training with all of our administrative staff on the anchor standards and the domains, and again, social justice.
I appreciate that because as has been pointed out previously, we have a very diverse student population, but not as much of a diverse teaching population. And I think that that's important, especially the awareness regarding different cultures and religions. When I was in the classroom, we received a similar training from a person from the Muslim community, and that was very helpful to me because just understanding, like now that students are observing Ramadan currently, it's important for teachers to have that sensitivity that, you know, someone might be fasting, so they might be sort of slouched over and tired, and just to have that awareness is really crucial. My follow-up question to that is, are we doing anything for students who are fasting to provide them an alternate setting during lunch?
I am not aware of that. I don't know if Dr. Balin has any information on that. Nope.
Okay, it's just something to consider.
Something to follow up
It is
on.
being done in some other districts that I know of, and it's been helpful. Students have come back and reported that it's been helpful to them because fasting is a serious commitment that you make, and it's difficult to maintain that when you see other people around you eating.
Just that individually, if we have a student who has expressed to us that they'd like to do that, in the guidance office, we have allowed them to come in and even just meet with us if they'd like to spend some time talking rather than go down to the cafeteria. So we have opened our doors to anyone who feels that they would like some time.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I figured that was probably the case for the high school, because I know in high school they're able to sort of have different options as where to go during their lunch. I'd be curious for middle school if that was something that was also available for them.
Yeah, I believe so. If a student is asking for an alternative place, they always can come down to the counseling office or my office, wherever there's room available, and, do what they need to do during lunch period.
Great, thank you.
I do think that each building does it a little bit differently, but in our building, we provide classroom opportunities as well as the library opportunities for kids. Actually, one of my young ladies in my 3rd grade group opted to come to lunch group so that she could participate in the videos, even though she was fasting. So it was a great opportunity.
Very nice, thank you.
Mr. Mecca?
Thank you for the presentation, and I just had a comment first and then a question, I guess. Uncharacteristically of me, I was reading our On-Board School Board Members magazine, and there was an article in there about a teacher that was helping students in the class to make connections, and throughout your presentation, it was clear that what you're doing is helping students make connections, and the person that was writing the article basically said these connections that people are doing in these connections that the teacher is facilitating is essentially saving lives. So I thought of that the moment you guys were, talking about the different things that you do. I just had one really specific question that kind of popped into my mind earlier in the presentation. It said that you're in the planning stages, or you said that you're in the planning stages of suicide prevention training for cafeteria workers, school bus personnel, etc. When do you anticipate that training is likely to take place?
We hope next school year. We've had conversations. Mr. Matursky and I have discussed trying to make arrangements for that presentation. That was part of the reason why we wanted to make sure we had staff members who volunteered and were willing to go and be trained in the curriculum, so that we had in-house individuals who could provide the training. So our plan right now is to meet as a group, those of us that participated in the training, and develop a schedule. And then I would bring that back to the leadership team and obviously colleagues who oversee the different departments to see what would be the best venue to get that information out. We're looking at presenting at every building as well, so every faculty meeting, all 13 of our buildings.
Thank you.
Mrs. Beeger?
Hi, thank you so much for this report. One of the things that really stood out to me in reading this report, we saw a showcase of 3 schools and all these incredible things that these 3 schools are doing. And I agree with Mrs. Leatherbarrow that when you look at our entire district and all the elementary, middle, and high schools, it's fascinating to see how each school has kind of developed its own unique way of approaching wellness and celebrating different acts of kindness and encouraging these really positive behaviors. So there's some consistency in some of these things. It seems like there's a lot of work and celebrations around Unity Day and that kind of spirit, but also each building has really brought to life some of their own ideas, and that's really nice to see. As a parent of children at different schools, I learned things that my kids were doing that I didn't even realize, because sometimes, kids come, how was your day? And they don't necessarily, or they'll say it, but you don't realize in detail what they're experiencing. So I echo the idea of sharing this with families, not just for their own school, but really to see as a district the kind of work that our faculty and staff and students are doing around wellness, because it really is very impressive and very unique to each building. So thank you for that. One of the things that stood out to me that I really liked to see was the work around the anti-bias and that relationship with the Muslim Public Affairs Council. I really think that in-service for the faculty is an excellent idea, and including the panel of students explaining biases that they've encountered. It was mentioned in the report that presentations to 8th grade students may follow, and I really think that's an excellent idea for a couple reasons. One, I don't think students or just people in general always realize when they're saying something that may offend or someone else may take offense to or feel like they're acting and showing a bias. People may not always be aware of that. For an 8th grader to learn that from other students rather than an adult telling them, oh, that's, if you word it this way, if you say this expression, to hear from kids, I think would be so much more powerful. So I hope the district goes ahead with that consideration and does schedule that kind of program for 8th graders, particularly at that bridge going into high school. I think that's a nice time for them to learn those kinds of behaviors from high school students. Thanks again for all your work. Really excellent.
Thank you. Thank you for your 2 comments. If I could share a couple of things regarding both of those. One of the powerful aspects of Challenge to Change is exactly what you highlighted, students learning from themselves. So some of the topics that they covered in Challenge to Change were understanding what prejudice is, what racism is, empathy. What does that mean? We talk about empathy, but what does it really look like? And microaggressions. And it just struck me when you were commenting about microaggressions and understanding our comments and how they impact other students, when sometimes they aren't ill-intended, but how they're interpreted.
Right.
And so that work will continue, and yes, we are exploring the opportunity to present at all of our middle schools to our 8th grade students and how to just facilitate that happening when our high school students are also in school.
Right.
So we're really trying to work through some of those logistics right now. And I will share with you, we host 2 times per year wellness retreats with all of our wellness facilitators. And the fall retreat is always my favorite because we begin going round robin. Every school shares at least one initiative that they have participated in or engaged in during the school year. And we learn so much from each other. We share ideas. Some of the things are adopted by other schools and expanded. And so it really, I have to give kudos to all of our wellness facilitators and the wellness teams in the buildings for their commitment and the work that they do each and every day in supporting our kids.
Dr. McCleary.
I have a quick request. I'm familiar with the 40 developmental assets, and I know that a lot of this is really grounded on that. But I'm wondering if there is an availability of a nice little booklet, maybe, for all of the board members that gives all kinds of information about the 40 assets.
Absolutely, and I would be happy to share that.
Thank you.
Thanks for the homework assignment. Any other board questions? I actually have a few. I've been focusing, especially in the last 4 months, heavily on looking at the elementary schools. So I really focused in on this report and what you guys talked about here. I loved hearing, especially here at Heim Elementary, about the self-esteem training in the 3rd grade. I love the mentoring program in the 4th grade, which really, that one and those 2 actually very specifically hit things that I think in the past 4 months that we were talked about quite heavily during the budget and the election season. Things like working to promote friendship programs in the elementary schools, similar to Web and Link type crews, so that way we can look at students that are sitting by themselves in the cafeteria and that sort of stuff. What programs, I guess specifically more at the elementary school, are they doing at the other elementary schools that are specific to this? And I'm going to throw out another term that we saw in a few different presentations over these past few months, a statement that was connecting students to meaningful adult-led activities. Where does that fall in? Do we have anything in those plans now, or is that something more for the future that we're looking at?
So I think I can comment generally. Every one of our elementary buildings, and you'll probably notice that in the report, does, as Mrs. Beaver mentioned, take a different approach to facilitating relationships and building connections, but all of their activities do so. So they may engage in service learning projects, always again connecting it to the developmental assets. So it's not just about volunteerism or fundraising, but what's the purpose, what's the intent, what is the asset that we're trying to target? How does that facilitate relationships with one another? All of our buildings also engage in, and again, remember the report isn't intended to give you a comprehensive it's really more of a snapshot of what every elementary building engages in. They work very hard to promote friendships, to promote linkages with adults in various ways. So again, while the activities may differ, the intention is the same.
Okay. And then I want to question you on two of the recommendations here that were in this report. The first one was regarding a dedicated school social worker to the AIM program remains a recommendation of the council. Is this a position you're looking at as a full-time position, a part-time position?
Originally, when we looked at it, we were really hoping for a part-time, half-time position to assist with the student needs at the Alternative Instructional Model Program.
Okay, fair enough. And then my last question was we remain committed to increase in mental health staffing, particularly in school counseling. Talk to me again back on the elementary school side. What do we have for counselors? What could we do? What do you envision? Is that where you're thinking counselors, or are we thinking more counselors in middle or high school levels?
So I don't know that we have a specific recommendation. One of the things that we were responding to is the requirement that all students K through 12 have access to a school counselor. Right now, we have school social workers and school psychologists in all of our elementary buildings. There has been a vocalized need by our middle schools to increase the number of school counselors at the middle level. So one of the considerations was looking to partner school counselors at the middle level with some of the needs for school counseling support at the elementary level. So really the recommendation from the council is really to consider looking at increasing our school counseling staff. A formalized recommendation I don't have available to present to you at this time. I would want information and input from stakeholders to present a more formalized recommendation, but that was the thinking.
I gotcha.
And I know our high school as well. I'm sure Cheryl's feeling that as well, that our high school folks would appreciate that.
Well, I'm always interested in learning more about this. I know we're at the end of the budget planning season right now, but it's never too early to start for the next one. So, again, thank you for this report. I think it's immensely beneficial. It's filled with a lot of good information, so thank you.
Thank you.
Would someone like to make a motion to approve the resolution for year-end budget transfer authority as presented? Mr. Mecca, thank you. Second? Mrs. Van Cise, didn't mean to stare right at you for that one. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Would someone like to make a motion to resolve to approve the resolution to refund the repair reserve as presented? Mrs. Beeger, thank you. Second? Mrs. Van Cise, thank you. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries unanimously again. Would someone like to make a motion to approve the bond anticipation note paydown as presented? Mrs. Van Cise, thank you. Second. Dr. McClary, thank you. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Would someone like to make a motion to approve the property tax settlement as presented? Mrs. Beeger, second. Mrs. Van Cise, discussion? All in favor? Opposed?
In favor.
You're in favor? Okay, thank you. Motion carries unanimously. If you have any liaison or conference reports, please pass them to Mrs. Carey. Does anyone need any coverage for any upcoming meetings? Mrs. Beeger.
I don't need coverage, but Mrs. Carey, by chance, did you get the Heim PTA report that I sent? I don't think I sent it correctly. I don't think it's your fault. I think that when I was sending it seemed to time out, and it occurs to me as I read this that...
No, Mrs. Beeger, I did not receive it.
Apologies, everybody. I went to the Heim PTA meeting. I'll resubmit. I remember as it was timing out, and then I kind of spaced it. So I'll get that to you.
Mr. Mecca?
May I ask a question about the timing out issue?
Yes.
Did you leave your window open while you were at a meeting trying to type the notes in for a long time? Is that what you mean by timing out?
No, it was, I went home, I went to send it, and it was like loading, and I
Okay.
don't know if it actually went through.
Got it. Anybody ever experience the problem that I experienced with timing out?
I did 3 years ago, and I know I talked with the IT department here at the district, and they increased the timeout to, I believe it was like an hour or an hour and a half. It used to time out and auto log you off of WITS. And of course, if you're at a meeting typing notes, the meetings are typically longer than an hour.
Yeah.
I don't remember the specifics of the duration. I do know that I keep the window open during any meeting that I'm at, and it has not timed out for me since.
I know what you're talking about. I've had
Perfect.
that issue also,
Yeah.
separately, yeah.
Old or new? Recent?
Oldish.
Oldish.
Not in a while, but I know what you
Could have been
mean.
2 years ago, maybe 3 years. Mrs. Vasquez and Mr. Meyer composed a letter to the legislators. Would either one of you like to please give us an update on that letter?
Sure, but at the outset, if I can, Sean, I'd like to make a motion. I move that we suspend the rules and amend the agenda. Let's make it an action item for the board to adopt this letter and send it to all state and federal representatives for the district.
Okay, motion is made and seconded by Mrs. Vasquez. Any discussion? Mr. Mecca?
If we make it an action item, that means that it is voted on tonight. Is that correct?
That's correct.
My second motion, after assuming it passes, would be that we approve the or adopt the letter and send it.
So,
Discussion.
in doing so, we would be able to amend the letter before we adopt it?
My proposition is that it would be an up or down vote.
Okay, I'm not happy with the way the letter reads right now, personally,
Okay.
so I'm not going to support that.
Okay, any other discussion on the motion at hand? That's not to pass the letter, it's to make this an action item to vote on passing the letter. So we're amending the agenda as it stands right now to change this from an informational to an action item. That's the motion at hand, put in layman's terms. Any other discussion on this? Okay, all in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All against? 1, 2. Dr. Venator, are you abstaining?
No, I'm still reading the letter because it was revised.
Well, we're not voting on the content of the letter quite yet.
Okay.
We're just voting on amending the agenda to make an action item to vote on the letter.
Although, if I understood it correctly, we are, in essence,
So
It will, in essence, then turn to
all right.
doing that, correct?
No, just because I like a little more time with it.
No? Mrs. Leatherberry, you look, okay?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Motion carries 603. I'm in the positive.
Oh, you were.
Yep, I'm in the positive. 603. I'm sorry, 630, right. So then that brings up the action item for the letter itself. Do you want to make a motion for the letter?
Sure. I move that the board adopt this letter and send it to all state and federal representatives for the district.
Okay, so a motion is made by Mr. Meyer to adopt the letter in its current state. Mrs. Vasquez has seconded it. Discussion. Mr. Mecca.
While I think the letter is a good start, when we had some back and forth via email, my recommendations couldn't be considered for the letter since the revisions were written after you received my suggestions. So just to outline my suggestions really quickly, we view this as going to possibly state and federal decision makers. And I think that the introduction could be changed a little bit to facilitate an understanding of who the letter is coming from. And also, I think that we need to do one of two things at this point with the letter. We've highly prescribed what the solution is to gun violence in our letter, and I'm not necessarily comfortable with that. But if we're going to pursue that path or line of thinking, I think we're leaving out a whole lot of other solutions to the problem. such as adding more mental health professionals to the schools. That's not mentioned in the letter. Training of school staff to identify at-risk students and how to deal with those students. That's not mentioned in the letter. Helping schools pay for enhanced security measures. That's not identified in the letter. And my general preference would be to not take that approach at all in terms of being prescriptive. What my general preference would be is to state the problem, state that we feel that a solution needs to, that resources need to be dedicated to finding a solution to the problem, and that we would like to assist with solving the problem. I don't necessarily think it's appropriate for us to outline and prescribe any specific measure to address the problem. Just my 2 cents.
Other discussion? Mrs. Leatherborough?
Mr. Mecca, I appreciate that. I do agree with some of those sentiments. The reason why I do support this letter is, first of all, we're not lawmakers, but we do have an obligation to advocate for what we feel is right. The sad thing about it is that this letter was drafted and presented, I believe, at our last meeting, and since then we've had another school shooting. And I know this is going to continue to happen. This is not something that we're just going to revisit once a year. This is happening way too often. Being that we are not legislators, that we are just here as advocates for children, I feel that by us writing a letter, it's a symbolic gesture. And so in that respect, the meat and bones of what's in it, I don't think we have to be like so concerned about every line and dotting every I and crossing every T. But I think what's more important is that we're sending out a message instead of staying silent. Because when we stay silent, then we just do nothing more than offer thoughts and prayers, and that's not doing it. So I would support this. And I thank those of you for working on this and writing it.
Mrs. Vasquez?
Mr. Mecca, I appreciate your sentiment regarding what you think the letter lacks, but please be mindful that the letter is for lawmakers. It's not for the problems or the issues that you mentioned, and I jotted down 2 of them, and I'm sorry I forgot the 3rd one, but the evaluation of at-risk students, for example, mental health the introduction of more mental health professionals in the schools, that's our job. Well, you guys' job. That's your job as a school district, and that's not the lawmakers' job to do that. What we tasked them to do was to do things that they can do, which is stop the sale of AR-15s to our children that kill other children.
Mr. Mecca?
I can appreciate what you're saying for sure, Tony, but the additional measures that we're taking as a school district to try to ensure our students' safety cost us money to do that. And I think that part of our advocacy should be looking to the government to help us find ways to solve these issues holistically. I don't think there's just one approach that's going to solve this problem, but I totally get that point of view and how, how it can be seen in that direction for sure.
Dr. McCleary?
Yes, I just wanted to add that I wanted to clarify that I voted no. It certainly wasn't no to doing this letter and the sentiments and all the things that are in there. My thought of not having action this evening is because it's only been like a day that we're adding and changing. And again, while I appreciate hearing from other people, I think that it is important, every single word that we write. It will be looked at, I hope, it will be looked at seriously, everything that's in here, as not just a symbolic kind of letter, that hopefully it will be taken seriously. And so I guess that's just on my side as a writer, that I think it should be as much in the letter as possible, but I don't disagree with anything that's here already.
Thank you. Other discussion? Mrs. Van Cise?
I would just like to reiterate, first of all, thank you for the time that both Phil and Tony put into this letter. I think it's extremely well written, and I appreciate your efforts. Personally, I think this letter, and I support this letter because I believe it has a very, very powerful message. And number one, it supports our stance. That's what we're trying to get across. I think the longer we make it and we start adding in our wish list as a district, although we would like this, I think our message is lost. I think it's important that we stand firm, hold our ground. This is our message as a district, and be the advocates. I just think that to lawmakers, that is more powerful than starting to tell them, so now what we would like is this, you know, A, B, and C. That's my opinion.
Mrs. Beeger?
That's an interesting point, and I originally thought, well, that's a good idea, Mark, to add more to this, but you're right, it is already long, and I'm very happy with the message this letter sends. I almost wonder if it wouldn't hurt just to continue to advocate for both of these things. This really tackles the violence that our kids are, the gun violence and the issues that come with that we've seen, again, just in the news last week. And it is an issue, the funding of mental health support, and maybe that's a different letter. And I'm not saying that every week we pick a topic that, you know, we want to write a letter on and send it to legislators, but at the same token, why not? I mean, we shouldn't sit here and be silent about these kinds of things. And legislators should hear from us. We're here to represent our community, and our community has asked for more security and support for our schools. So why shouldn't we be sending our lawmakers letters asking for funding for those things? It's expensive and it's important. So my thought is, rather than continually kind of revising, to go with this letter on the topic of gun violence, and then do some thinking around asking for funding for legislators or more support, more fiscal support to do what we'd like to do to enhance security in our schools beyond what we have in our budget.
Mr. Mecca?
One more and I'll be quiet. I guess I liked what Dr. McCleary had to say. Kind of summed up what I felt about the process. I wish it was more kind of an inclusive process, and something as important as this, I think the board should have consensus on, because it really pains me to vote against this.
I will make a note, if you want, Mr. Mecca, you could make a motion to table the letter, and we can revise it and come back to it next month if you'd like. Or any board member, for that matter, can make that motion. Dr. McCleary?
No, I would kind of like to support, not kind of, sorry. I would like to support what Ms. Beeger was saying, that maybe it does become a practice of ours to not send one excellent letter, but to regularly be sending letters, such as including some of the points that Mr. Mecca is talking about and so forth. Then that might...
Almost like we would need a legislative writing committee or a volunteer.
We can do that.
Mrs. Beeger?
Well, I mean, yeah. I don't know. I think that's a no-brainer. I think if we're, not like I'm volunteering to write all this, as we find things that we're passionate about and that are important and that we're hearing from our community, why wouldn't we do that?
We clearly have talented writers on our board.
Clearly.
So is there no other motion on the table right now?
No, your motion still stands currently.
Well, then let me just say a few things. One, I respect and appreciate everyone's opinion on this board. There certainly was no attempt to exclude anyone's thoughts. This letter first circulated, I believe, over a month ago at our last board meeting. Now, with limited time from each board member, it may be hard or difficult to have constant back and forth. But based on today's emails, Tony and I did our best to incorporate the comments that were sent our way, and those are reflected in the very last paragraph. For me, this is a pretty simple issue. We're here to advocate for the students, their health, their safety, their education. These weapons have no place, and they do threaten their health and safety. And so for me, it's just very simple. There needs to be an assault weapons ban and other common sense gun legislation. Now, some people may say that's too political or has nothing to do with the role of a board, but I strongly disagree with that, because if the health and safety or the life of a child is not of importance to the board, then what kind of board are you? And so tonight I stand to support this letter.
Any other comments? With that, I put it to a vote. All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Would you please get a copy of the letter to Mrs. Carey so she can put it on letterhead? We'll have to address it to all the politicians, and then the challenge for here will now come to be that we all have to sign it. If you recall, previously we had copies already prepared. Tonight we're not prepared, so I would ask if it's possible if all the board members sometime over the next week maybe could swing by here and sign it. We could make it available during just about any window. Mr. Mecca?
Would those that voted against it sign it? I don't know if I feel comfortable doing that.
Sean, if I may, you know, I understand, respect, and appreciate the dissent. I disagree with it, but out of respect for their vote, we could do one of two things. Either it could be signed exclusively by you on behalf of the board, since the board voted in the affirmative to adopt it, or alternatively, those board members who individually voted in the affirmative could sign it. I personally am maybe of the mind that maybe the board president signs it on behalf of the board.
That was exactly what I was going to suggest, so unless there's any opposition there, if somebody really wants their signature to be on the letter, I'll just sign on behalf of the entire board, if that's okay.
I'm good with that.
Okay.
I'm fine.
Then I'll get together with you sometime this week. Actually, you have my signature. Are there any other legislative matters that anyone wants to discuss? Yes, Mrs. Leatherborough.
I'll be brief because I know it's getting late. I just wanted to bring up, in case people are unaware, that the Assembly recently passed a bill which, to my understanding, addresses the test-based metrics and the linkage with APPR. I've been trying to do some careful reading. I'm in no way an expert, but my understanding is that it decouples the state assessments, the 3rd through 8th grade New York State ELA and math exam, from the teacher's evaluation, which at first glance looks like a big win, but I just would like to urge people to read a little bit more between the lines, because with federal regulations in place, districts are still required to use some type of evaluation to some type of test score from students to measure teachers' performance. And this bill is written sort of brags about giving local control back to districts so that districts would then choose which assessment would be used. However, I see it as what could possibly be more costly to school districts, because there's a good chance that school districts might choose to use a different assessment than the one that's been widely criticized that's currently being used. So right now it's just in the Senate. No news of whether that will go anywhere, but I just wanted to point that out in case anyone wants to discuss it further.
Mrs. Leatherborough, didn't that pass the Senate and it's in the Assembly now, or do I have that backwards? I thought it passed one.
It passed the Assembly.
It passed the Assembly? Okay.
Goes to
So
the
it's
Assembly.
sitting in the Senate. I do concur and agree with your thoughts on that process. I think there's a loophole being left open, and it's primarily from the federal law that states that we have to do some formal evaluation. And I agree with your sentiment that I think we'll find that districts are going to be forced into creating another alternate test. And the last thing I think is we need is more testing for our students, this time specifically to test the capabilities of our teachers and administrators. So I would agree with you on that. Almost seems like another letter. Any other legislative matters? I do like that idea that we heard earlier here. If somebody wants to think about it through a little bit more, if we want to put together a legislative writer or something like that, we could discuss it more at the next board meeting. I definitely kind of encouraged by that idea, actually. It does kind of address some of our concerns. I don't know how much pull we have with the state or the federal, but we are a large school district, and we kind of get forced to eat our cereal here, whether we want it or not sometimes, and it would be nice to say something about it. Yes?
I'd be happy to. Even, I don't know if we want to make it that specific, but as far as talking about providing additional funding to school districts to enhance security, whether it be resources, building enhancement, or personnel, I would be happy to draft that. I don't think it can hurt. I think it's fair to ask.
Okay with the board? Or Dr. Martzoff?
I just would like to make a suggestion, listening to this conversation amongst board members in regards to letters and what should be in them, what might not be in them, and who should write them, and how they should go. I think it's admirable to be writing letters to advocate for what we want for public education, and most importantly, the safety of students. At the same time, though, I don't think that's going to be as effective as if you had, for example, small groups of board members, myself, and other leaders in the district that would go and meet with legislators and talk to them personally, face to face, and express our concerns with what's going on in this country when it comes to targeted school violence and a whole myriad of other issues, from APPR to whatever other item we'd like to discuss. If they don't hear from you, if they don't see your face, the letter goes into a pile with lots of other letters that say similar things, and it's not given the weight that it deserves. So I would just encourage the board to think about that going forward. If you want to keep going down this path, think about having, 3 board members and a group of people that goes to meet with legislators. They need to hear from all of us directly and face to face, so that hopefully some reasonable changes can be made. That's just my thinking.
I couldn't agree more, especially since I've met with a few of these politicians over the last few years. I kind of joked about it a few moments ago, but I'm almost starting to sound like we're looking at a legislative committee of the board here, that 3 members would potentially meet with politicians and or draft letters, a combination of that, and then present those back to the board possibly. Yes, Mrs. Leatherborough.
I just want to point out that the Erie County Association of School Boards does that. To my knowledge, it's been a few years that since one of our representatives from the Williamsville board has attended those meetings, but each year they do set up meetings with our local lawmakers, and they always ask for participants from school districts. So I think the timing of letters is important too. We want to, if we're looking at advocating for budgetary issues, then we want to make sure we're mindful of the timing, so that we're doing that during budget season, not perhaps after a budget has already just been passed. But perhaps next year, when this comes up again, whoever is chosen to represent Erie County Association of School Boards on the legislative committee can please bring back reports to us so that we know when those meetings are happening, so that we can really show up and be a part of it.
Mr. Mecca?
I think ECASB provides some funding too for board members to travel to Albany to talk to lawmakers. Something to, offset the hotel or whatever, travel expenses, whatever it is.
I know when I first came on as board president, I was, and I don't remember if it was NYSBA or Erie County, but somebody had contacted me about traveling several times to Albany. It always occurs during the business week and during business hours, which unfortunately is a little more difficult to take a day off several times in the school year to do that. But they were looking for people, and I dare say they would look for committees if there was 2 or 3 people from the district here that wanted to go, the adage, power in numbers, and this definitely, I think, falls under something like that. So maybe we table this for a month and we come back to it, and we can even discuss maybe creating this legislative committee come the July reorg meeting. Dr. McClary.
Just really quickly, I was part of the group that this year met with Mr. Collins, and that was local.
Right, I remember.
I remember you reporting on that.
Yep.
Thank you.
Any other legislative matters? If not, we'll move on. Okay, Dr. Martzloff, would you like to introduce the business program review, please?
Sure. At this time, I'll turn it over to Dr. Balin, who will introduce our guests who are going to present on our business program. So, Dr. Balin.
Thank you, Dr. Martzloff, and thank you for the opportunity this evening to the board. We have greatly appreciated over the last several years the chance to share with you information that actually is shared in a very lengthy program review that's given to Curriculum Council. You're going to see a very abbreviated, condensed version of that, mostly tonight in visuals and photos from our students who are part of our business program. I wish to thank the members of our business department who are here this evening, and Mr. Russo. These colleagues, along with a larger subset of teachers from the business programs across our schools, came together this year and presented an outstanding presentation to the Curriculum Council. So thank you, colleagues. I will actually hand it off to Mr. Russo to do some introductions, and look forward to hearing our information this evening. Mr. Russo?
Thank you, Dr. Bellin. And good evening again, everyone. Williamsville has a very strong business program that has been in place for many years. I'm pleased to have with me tonight the business teachers from our 3 high schools, Marlena Belcito from North High School, Alexis Langhire from South High School, and Brian Pawlowski from East High School, who also teaches a class at South High School. As Dr. Bellin mentioned, we're going to give you a very abbreviated version of the Curriculum Council presentation that we did back in March. Specifically, we want to address course offerings, DECA and FBLA, work-based learning, and the CTE endorsement program. Brian is going to begin with course offerings.
Thank you. I just want to take an opportunity to thank the board for your time and efforts in listening to us. Basically, on the overhead, you can see we have a brief overview of all the courses that we offer throughout all the Williamsville high schools. Basically, the top 3 are what we refer to as our foundation courses, especially through the CTE program, which we'll talk to in later couple slides. Below those, you will notice that we have several courses that we refer to as our pathways. After a student goes through a couple foundation courses, which gives them a brief concept of all of our courses, then they have the opportunity to select something that interests them, which creates the pathway perspective. Towards the bottom of the list, you will see a couple courses that we really offer to juniors and seniors, especially the College and Careers Communications, which is a great course that allows them to really apply what they need to do for college in school environment, especially with the guidance departments and the teachers. You'll notice that several of the classes have stars after them. Basically, those are our courses that also offer college credit. We are affiliated with ECC, which is a SUNY school. So basically, almost all SUNY schools will accept that college credit as long as they maintain or get a C+ grade. Also, we have this year, some of our teachers will be attending Syracuse University to have a seminar to actually perform SUPA. So our accounting program will also be offered at the college level courses. Basically, in a nutshell, what we refer to as critical skills, transferable skills, 21st century skills, we take it upon ourselves as teachers, especially business teachers, to make sure our students are ready to enter the workforce. Even today, I just loved hearing some of the current issues that you were talking about. We address that in the classroom. We feel that our students need hands-on activity that address real-life situations, that make them capable of being employable by an employer. One of the basic events that they do is we actually have them look at wand pads. And right there it says, we want critical skills. We want problem-solving thinking. Well, we say, what is that? It's easy to say on a resume, I can do it. Demonstrate it to us, show it to us, and that's what we try to drive in our business classes. I'll turn it over to my colleagues who will elaborate, please.
Good evening. Thank you again for allowing us this opportunity tonight. It is an extraordinary pleasure, to talk about specifically DECA and FBLA because those are two significant components to the business department here at Williamsville Schools. At all three high schools, there's a representation of either DECA or FBLA as co-curricular activities. These are truly critical programs that allow students the opportunity to apply the skills and knowledge that they're learning in the business curriculums, but even other curriculums as well. It brings in the cross-curricular learning and skills that are required for school students to be successful in high school and beyond through competitive events, through community involvement, and different engagement. What you're really looking at is approximately 500 students are currently engaged in this activity that supersedes the skills that are within the classroom. We're taking students out of the typical four-wall classroom and we're having them apply those knowledge and skills in problem-solving scenarios. They're working with community members, business leaders, certainly for many of their competitive events, but they're also working with them for solving problems. Students in DECA and FBLA are regularly involved in activities throughout the district. For example, working with the snack program, not this program, but over at East High School where they're involved and they're building the business, also coming alongside athletics. We have students that are developing community service projects. This past year, students developed a project that we just found out this past week. The money they raised for charity water is actually helped build a well in Mozambique about 2 months ago. That's the type of hands-on work, and some of that's local and some of that's global, but it's problem solving in a very practical way that's allowing them to take those business knowledge and skills and take it to the next level. What we also see is that our students, especially those who participate in the regional, state level, and international level competitions, those are students who are going one step further. That Williamsville Schools is providing them the opportunity to be able to not only enhance their own knowledge, but set themselves apart so that when they are applying to schools and colleges, that they are able to put on their application such an incredible and well-renowned program. They're also able to put on there the acclimates of competing, achieving, and succeeding on many levels, and they're setting themselves apart so that when they get into those colleges, or even for those students who choose to go into internship programs or gap years with different programs, that they're able to showcase those very skills of networking, communication, problem solving, again, critical thinking, and applying very practical business skills right away that other students may not have had the opportunity to do so. We're truly setting our students apart. We're giving them opportunity after opportunity. We're connecting back to our community here as well as the global community. And these are critical co-curricular programs that we're so excited that district-wide, all of our business teachers are truly a part of. While each building has their own advisor for each of these programs, it's certainly a team-wide effort. And so you'll find that the business department at each building is truly connected and working together for all of our students who have this opportunity to succeed, to go above and beyond and prove themselves to be the absolute best that we all know they're so capable of being. So this is a phenomenal program that we've been running for years and years and continue to run for the sake of our students succeeding in huge ways. Thank you.
Thank you for having us tonight as well. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about our work-based learning programs. I've been in Williamsville for 20 years, and the programs, as Brian mentioned, our curriculum, we've continually updated them. I've been on several curriculum writing teams, and we always try to maintain the newest, the best, the cutting edge, and keep in line with those standards. National, right now, at one point it was just getting in line with the CDOS standards for New York State. Now we're looking and we are in line, all of our curriculum in line with the national standards for business education. Through that process over these last 20 years, we also were one of the first districts to have a certified career exploration internship program put in place in New York State. I know that because when I took the courses at Buff State to get my diversified coordinator's license, the man teaching it said, "Oh, you're from Williamsville? We use all your forms." That's what we teach everyone else. So we've really been on the front end of this program from the onset. The Career Exploration Internship Program is really unique in that, one, it is truly exploration. Students give us their career interests, and we try to find them a placement, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't work, in that they said, "Oh, I can't pursue this career at this point. Now that I've actually seen it, it's not as glamorous as I thought," or I need something more exciting, or maybe it's too exciting for me. I can't see myself doing this. So it really becomes win-win in that they either solidify that this is certainly something they want to pursue in the future, or they determine that they're going to take another path. The program itself is duly certified by the New York State Board of Education and the Department of Labor. And students are required to complete 54 hours of non-paid training in a career field. Along with that, they complete 21 hours of classroom time where we have seminars on different workplace situations, OSHA, at least in my classes, I cover a lot of the things that we're even required to cover through the Global Compliance Network, the GCN training that we do here in Williamsville. So I share a lot of that with the students, in preparation for having them make that adjustment. The General Education Work Experience Program is another work program that we have kind of under this umbrella. And what this program allows is for students who are currently enrolled and successfully complete a business class to actually earn credit if they are maintaining part-time employment. For every 150 hours that they are working, they earn half a credit, and 300 hours is a full credit, and students can earn up to 2 full credits on their transcript. We have very diverse students in our population, and most students, at least at North High School, they don't need the credit to graduate. But what it does is it really helps differentiate them from everyone else. If the bar is always being moved higher and higher, and now everyone's taking these classes, and everyone's doing this, and everyone's doing that, this is like one extra feather in the cap for a student to say, not only have I maintained a rigorous course load and I've done well, but look I've also maintained employment, and it's shown on my transcript. So it gives it a little more credibility than just the average part-time job. A third program, which is not listed but is certainly as important, is the district offers the work study program. And in this program, students who are identified as having either a social, emotional, or financial need are actually put on the payroll for Williamsville schools. And they are placed in different areas in different buildings, whether with a teacher or other personnel, maybe working in an office. But they are paired up with an adult who then can mentor the student and kind of help make them feel a greater part of the community. And at the same time, they're earning some money for their efforts. So those students are identified by different people in the school. They would come through our office and they would complete all the proper paperwork in order to be an employee, and then we try to match them up with an area in our building who needs help. It's mutually beneficial, and they kind of have a nice working relationship with yet another adult in the building. So when they have a free period, they're able to work, and so on. They collect a paycheck. Lastly, I want to talk to you a little bit about the CTE, which is the Career and Technical Education Endorsement. This is something, as I said, we've been continually improving and updating our curriculum. And at the last curriculum review, one of our goals was to complete the CTE program and become certified by the state of New York Department of Education. We have indeed accomplished that, and in the last few years we have implemented this program. What's interesting about it is obviously the first year we had the credential, not everyone was eligible because, as Brian alluded to, there are certain pathways that students have to take, certain courses that have to be completed in order to test and earn this endorsement. So the first year, there were only 5 or 6 kids. The second year, maybe 10 or 12 district-wide. This year, it's safe to report we have about 60 students now throughout the district who are able to test and work towards earning this endorsement. So what do I mean by that? There are 4 pathways. There is a business and information processing pathway, an accounting pathway, principles of marketing, and a computer information processing pathway. So 4 distinct areas of interest, and all the students need to complete computer applications and keyboarding, or Microsoft Office computer applications, introduction to business, and the half-year finance. They then need to take at least 1 or more of the courses in that desired pathway. Each course has a performance component where they would complete a project or something that is more authentic type of assessment. At the same time, there is a national assessment that they would take online, provided through NACD or the Ask Institute, and also a computer proficiency test as well, that is provided through NACD. As long as the students have completed all of those requirements and they have reached the cut scores by the National Institute, they would receive this endorsement. And this endorsement, coincidentally, is the highest endorsement awarded by the State Department of Education on a diploma. So we have seen basically what has happened as, like I said, when we started, it just kind of happened naturally, kind of organically. Kids found themselves going into these pathways, but now we can really use this as a marketing tool when we reach out to 8th grade orientation, when we start talking to our students, about enrollment for the following year. We can look to this as a tool to keep moving them along a certain path that would be most beneficial for them. And we've seen the numbers improve greatly.
As I mentioned when we began, this is only some brief highlights of our program. We could certainly go on about these and many other topics and how we are working to provide opportunities for students. At this time, if anyone has any questions or comments, we would welcome them.
Mr. Meyer.
Yeah, more so a comment. First off, thanks for coming out tonight. And second, I got to tell you, I'm really impressed with everything you guys have done. I went to the DECA conference, and I was blown away by the kind of hands-on, instruction and the face-to-face that the students got with businesses that are actually in their community. The kind of real-world situations that they have to work through. And then also, I've taken part in my own business with your career internship program. I don't know if he thought law was as glamorous when he left as when he came in, but I know that he had a very good time. I certainly got a lot out of it as well as a business owner, a lot of constructive and meaningful feedback, and they actually helped me. They helped me quite a bit along the way, so thank you.
Just on that, most of our mentors do end up finding it very mutually beneficial. We actually had a student last summer who was working in the marketing department. He was working in the marketing department at the JCC, and the woman there who runs it, Mrs. Greenspan, she was like, we really need to improve our social media. What can we do? Blah, 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 blah. So who better than a teenager to help her? And he actually not only improved their online presence and created all these wonderful things for the JCC, but also cut their costs by 40%. So they were like, would you like a job? And unfortunately, that 40% didn't translate into something that was competitive with Chipotle's wage. So he stayed at Chipotle, but, it was a great experience.
Other comments? Mrs. Leatherborough?
Just real quick, I just want to point out my own children have benefited greatly from this program, and I just want to thank you for that. my daughter that's going to be a senior is involved in the career internship program for the fall, and she's very excited about that. And as a parent, I've been most impressed by your Intro to Business course. Just the life skills that are, the range of life skills that are put into one class really just blows my mind. Just something that I think all students would benefit from. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Your daughter also took the CTA exam.
Yes, she did.
Mrs. Van Cise?
And I thank you for the presentation because I did not know that you had so many pathways already worked into your high school. So that's great because I'm sitting here and now I realize my daughter's in a pathway. She took the Intro to Business and loved it, plans on doing the youth leadership. And then I had a conversation with one of the North teachers who simply, in a quick second, I was like, you are taking that career in college readiness class, because how cool is that you have that, which is so beneficial for students to first-handedly be able to be engaged in their own writing. And it puts the ownership on them instead of the parents at home maybe not understanding it or even writing it for them. So I'm really excited that class is being offered here in the district, and I'm excited for me as a parent that she'll have the opportunity to take that.
I'll just say on the college and career communications, that's a perfect example of how we have really grown and actually changed with the needs of the market because, again, when I started, that included shorthand. You know, the college, it was called college note-taking, and it was, the students were learning speed writing and, you know, how do we kind of meander our way through our first year of college. And now, obviously, as I said, the game is being upped all the time. So that course in and of itself, just seeing the evolution of it and what it provides now for the students, whether it's how to seek out and find scholarship, how to apply for college, how to write a good college essay, you know, it puts a lot of the responsibility on the student, but that in and of itself makes them more invested in their learning and their further education.
Mr. Mecca?
I don't really have a question so much as a comment. Thank you for the presentation, and I'm really impressed by the innovation that I wasn't really expecting to hear about, especially with respect to the job shadowing program. I don't know what you referred to it as. What is it?
Career internship.
Thank you. Career internship. That's an amazing opportunity for students to get to work alongside someone that's doing a job to help out. And I think that's you guys are doing a really nice job. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have to agree with what most of my colleagues here have already said. I have two daughters, one who my youngest is now a junior at South, and sadly, neither one have decided to go in my shoes, which is in the business world. They are both going into the educational world, so I guess there's a win there. The college and career is something I try to twist my youngest daughter's arm to take for just the reasons you described, and I almost wish that was a mandatory course because I can really see how that'd be so beneficial. But on that note as well, too, the Intro to Business, I preach to both my daughters, take Accounting 101, learn how to reconcile a checkbook. The Intro to Business does that sort of stuff, gets into the basics of life skills. So, kudos to you guys for being ahead of the curve here and offering these things. I've attended the various DECA events, the dinners and stuff like that. I've toured North's facilities and with the DECA program there, and I'm trying to think of the name of the installation. Thank you. The program that's run by students. And I think it's a tremendous opportunity for our kids to get experience and really get their feet wet in this. So thank you for all that you've done.
I'm sorry, I'm monopolizing this, but you said my daughters aren't going into business, they're going into education. And quite frankly, the message that we send out to everyone is that the courses we offer are for everyone. It's, you know, we are not saying, well, if you take this, then you are going to go for your MBA or you're going to do this. Especially when it comes to the career exploration program, our students, they want to experience anything, you name it, whether it's a veterinarian, physical therapy, law, education, marketing, PR. There's something for everyone, and our courses are for everyone. And that career, college and career, especially, that the way that, like I said, that has evolved, that gives us a vehicle to draw from the whole school population, not just the student who says, well, I want to be an accountant, so I will take accounting 1 or accounting 2. You know, that is really for everyone. So that's really improved our program holistically because it reaches the entire population.
If I could just add one comment too. What you heard a lot of tonight is certainly the notion of opportunities, and what we talk a lot about is how do we ensure that all students are exposed to those opportunities, because you'll hear us talk about that these are not just business courses. This is how are we equipping all students to be ready and excited for whatever's next for them. And that's true also of DECA and FBLA, that we have many students who come through those programs, are incredibly successful in those programs, and go into careers that are not related, at least not on the front end, to business. But it's those transferable skills, those communication skills, the networking skills, critical thinking, problem-solving, teamwork skills that we all know are the things of life, the things that take us from one career to the next, that certainly transcend career pathways or different ventures with that. So that's one of the things that we are all so proud of our program to do. And again, these opportunities that you allow us to continue to offer our students really sets them up to have those transferable skills and continue to break boundaries or barriers of, well, that's not my path, in the same way that a student might say that about a different pathway. We want all of our students to really be exposed to and have opportunities in these courses. And especially like you talked about, and a few of you kind of commented on, the checkbooks and different things like that. We feel very strongly that some of these courses, especially that personal finance, has such a huge piece for all students being successful in life. And we see an opportunity there for down the road of just ensuring that every student is exposed to that. So that's something we hope to continue to explore. Thank you.
I want to say thank you to all of you for coming in and presenting and organizing a terrific presentation for the board and for our community. But most of all, thank you for all the work that you're doing with our students every single day to help prepare them to be successful beyond school. If you wouldn't mind, I don't know, Mrs. Wolf, if you can get us back to the slide with the names of the courses. I just have a couple of things I just want to make mention of. Yes, so these are all the courses that you offer at the 3 schools. So my question is, are all of these courses offered at all 3 of our high schools?
Basically, I'm just so used to being in front. I want to be with my class. Basically, the principles of marketing is primarily at South and at North, and the advertising and media is at East. Other than that, pretty much all the courses are offered at all the colleges. That's pretty much the only one exception. And this one. Unfortunately, well, they're all offered. Unfortunately, we just haven't gotten enough students to run this. North is pretty much the only high school presently running it. Basically, this year I was really pushing it. We had 8 students to register, but it didn't run. So yes, they're all offered. This is the one exception where it's just at East, and the other 2 run this marketing concept. So it's just teacher preference. Basically, because the one teacher we had actually really came from the advertisement industry, and that's why she really likes that concept.
And if I heard you correctly in your presentation, each of the courses with an asterisk next to it allows for dual credit?
Yes, that's correct. That is correct.
SUNY?
What we do is, as teachers, we actually present as if we were a ECC professor. They actually go online, fill out the actual ECC application. Basically, then they pay the tuition. It's at $255, so they get the 3 credits, and they actually then get dual credit. They get Williamsville credit and ECC credit. And because ECC is now SUNY College, it pretty much transfers as a general elective to any SUNY college.
And it's a real college transcript that they receive with that.
They actually even get a student ID if they wish. They can use their library, use
campus. What a great benefit to our students and families. Question for you, looking at this list of courses, I hear a lot from students in our Inter-High Advisory Council, where we have about 15 students from each of our 3 high schools. They'd be really interested in things that relate, for example, to business law. I think there it is, business and personal law, great. And the other one I hear a lot about is like sports management. And I know we have a lot of professional teams, minor league teams. There's got to be a lot of opportunities for internships there. Has the department ever given thought to developing a course like that that might be of high interest to students?
So a specific course has been talked about to some extent. I will say that carries over into principles of marketing and entrepreneurship pretty significantly. There's a lot of opportunity there, and certainly teachers, given the curriculum, bring that in. It has been mentioned.
Yeah, I'll just talk to that. What happens, like North High School has maintained principles of marketing pretty solidly, and it has come and gone from the other buildings based on interest level, as Brian kind of mentioned. That's how things kind of work. And often they say, hey, why don't we make sports and entertainment marketing a half-year course, or how about we do entertainment or travel and tourism? A lot of these ideas that are, it's kind of a niche. The issue is that principles of marketing as a whole is a pretty meaty curriculum. It does take a whole year. It is, the principles are the principles, no matter what area you apply it to. So once the student has that foundation, you could take it and say, here, now apply it to sports and entertainment marketing, or apply it to music, or so on. Given the way the curriculum process works, you have to write the proposal ahead of time, then write it after, write it the following summer, and so on. It's kind of hard to time, like, how are we going to implement this? And would we really get students who would take it as an additional course, like a secondary course, or would we be pulling them out of a full year course? So being an elective program where we are, point blank, we are concerned about enrollment, because enrollment is what sustains our jobs. It's really a gamble to say, do we throw out a couple half-year, kind of kitschy type classes to pull in the athlete or the musician or whatever, but if it affects a full year course, how do you weigh those consequences? That's kind of where I see it. If I have kids at the end of the year of marketing, they say, I'd love another session, but if I'm teaching 45 kids, it might be only 5 or 10, and that wouldn't be enough to hold another year course. What I tend to do is, once you teach a concept, you teach those principles, I try to provide projects or assessments where they can take it into the field that they're interested in. So if you're interested in travel and tourism, your final project can be on this. If you're interested in sports, go with it, because there's also kind of a misconception that, sports and entertainment marketing, that means, I like sports, so I'm going to be good at that. It's not playing fantasy football. It's using sports to market other things. You kind of have to change the mindset of the student or the student athlete who says, like, hey, I want to come in and do that. So it's not out of the question, but it's certainly something that we've gone back and forth with quite extensively, because you have to see how it would affect the big picture.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Would someone like to make a motion to approve the funding and the agreement between the Superintendent of Schools and the Williamsville Administrators Association as presented, please? Mrs. Beeger, thank you. Is there a second? Mrs. Van Cise, thank you. Any discussion on it? Okay, all in favor? Okay, motion carries unanimously.
Mr. Smilnich, I see, is in the audience. It's hard to see him amongst all the guests that we have this evening. but he is the president of the Williamsville Administrators Association. Did you want to come to the podium and say a few words about the contractual agreement, or it's up to you?
Not that we're putting you on the spot here or anything.
Yeah. It depends on your comments, I think. No, it passed.
We were going to come in the June meeting, but on behalf of the WA, the Williamsville Administrative Association, I want to say thank you. It was a pleasure working alongside you, Dr. Marceloff. It was a pleasant negotiations. It was quick. It was nice, and I think both parties came to a common consensus and agreement. So again, I want to thank you on behalf of the WA for working alongside of us. Thank you to the Board of Education for making this agreeable tonight. So thank you again for approving it. Have a good night, too.
Thank you. Would someone like to make a motion to approve the State Environmental Quality Review Assessment Resolution for the 2018 Music Program Capital Project as presented? Mrs. Beeger, thank you. Second. Mrs. Van Cise, thank you. Is there any discussion? I had two comments or two concerns reading this report. Not that it's going to hold me up from approving this, but I noticed under the middle school section, we had two comments. One relating to additional rehearsal room for orchestra that could come from part of a pool location or relocation. I know there's been some comments over the past several months, especially a news story that was in the Buffalo News, and parents and concerns. Not that I want to quote and say our founding fathers, but our founding fathers of this district at some point decided that we needed pools in a lot of our schools. And it wasn't because they wanted pools in the schools. They wanted our schools to offer an important skill, a life skill, which is that of teaching every single student to swim. I am opposed to doing anything with closing any further pools down until we start to come up with an alternative to looking at how are we going to teach our students to swim. I think this is still a core fundamental skill that we need to teach. I don't find more and more community pools being established. I find less and less community pools being established. So I just wanted to go on the record and make that comment about that. I am against us doing anything with closing down that pool until we come up with a plan. And then the second question I had on this, Dr. Martzloff, I see at Mill Middle an installation of air conditioning and dehumidification system for rehearsal spaces, lesson spaces, and the auditorium. The auditorium was the question because I did not see specifically AC being mentioned in any of the high school or middle school portions of this report. Is Mill the only school that does not have air conditioning currently in their auditorium?
I don't think that's exactly correct. Mr. Maturski, do you want to?
Mill and Heim do not, and they both will receive air conditioning in this project.
Okay, I didn't see it for Heim. I must have missed it, but okay. Perfect, okay. So then that would bring all of our middle and high schools up to, at least their auditoriums will have air conditioning. Are there any enhancements to any of the air conditioning systems? I asked that just being a parent of South. I know sometimes South's auditorium has been on the warm side. So, question mark, are we upgrading or enhancing those in any way?
So you mean enhancements, like when you press the power button, it actually turns the air conditioning on and
Would
cools
be very nice.
it down?
Especially since I think later this week I have a concert to attend there, and I believe the day the concert is going to be there, they're calling for 80 degrees outside. So yes.
We are looking at the high schools. South High School will be looking at possibly replacing that air conditioning system for the auditorium. East High School, that system functions pretty well, so we wouldn't be doing anything there. And North High School, similarly, we've just done some work there. But when we do the entire project, this is just to do the state environmental quality review. So we have to mention all the possibilities, and that's what this is about, is making sure we're addressing the possibilities. What actually is built in the final project and what is voted on in the proposition might be a little different, but you're correct. That is our scope of work.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Any other comments on this? Mrs. Beer?
Just to clarify what we just were discussing about Mill, this mentions one additional rehearsal room, but it doesn't specifically say that it will definitely come from the pool location. That's
Correct.
just
It doesn't. It just
an option of
suggests.
many. Okay, I just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Dr. Benader.
Sure. I just echo your first comment, Mr. Lemay. I know there's rumors out there, but I've been contacted by a fair number of parents and community members concerned about pool closings. So I agree with your first comment that I'd like to see no more pool closings. So thank you.
Anyone else? All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Would someone like to make a motion to approve the summer basketball camp lease agreement as presented? Mr. Mecca, thank you. Someone to second? Mrs. Leatherbarrow, thank you. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Dr. Martzloff, would you like to introduce the Energy Conservation Committee report, please?
Sure, it is in your packet, and we're happy to answer any questions that the board has at this time.
Well said. Any comments or questions? Thank you. How about turning now to the Wellness, Nutrition, and Fitness Committee report, Dr. Martzloff?
Yes, we have a committee that works on this each year, and we were able to revise and adopt a new policy at our last meeting earlier in May, and happy to answer any questions that board members have.
Mrs. Leatherbarrow.
One real quick, and I'm just going off memory, so forgive me. With the portal that allows you to pay for your child's lunch, did I read that correctly, that there's a transaction fee that's associated with that? Can someone explain that to me? I didn't understand that.
It's a fee that I pay for the last several years every single time I put money into the account. It's
Okay, so
It's to pack your lunch for your kid.
yeah. Just so, because I just realized that I was paying this fee. Is this transaction for each time I upload money, or is it each time the kid buys lunch?
No, it's each time you upload money. I believe it's a transaction fee to offset the credit card processing, if I'm not mistaken.
The fee does not go to the Child Nutrition Department. It goes to the provider of the service. However, the Child Nutrition Department does provide additional lunches at no charge if you buy a packet. So if you buy 10 lunches, for example, it will offset those fees by giving you extra lunches.
Oh,
I did not know that. Did
So
they
that's
publish that
important.
anywhere?
That's important for parents to know that. Okay.
I think, yeah, I agree. I think you should publish that somewhere, because I've, for several years now, been recouping that, and nowhere do I ever recall when I put $50 in, does it say, oh, you're going to get free lunches? Interesting. Mrs. Van Cise.
In regards to the school lunches, this just kind of came up. One past experience I had where there was a picnic going on at school, and my son ended up getting a hot dog. I knew it was a picnic, but he got a hot dog, and then he was charged for it. I had no knowledge of it until like 2 months later when I got a letter basically that I owed the district $2.95, and I needed to pay that. And I was a little kind of shocked. I called up just to inquire and certainly said if I would have known, I certainly would have paid it previously. I also just received a letter again. My daughter had money in her account. She takes a lunch. I put money in her account September. Evidently, she finally exhausted through it with maybe just snacks and got a bill for like $12.95. So I went on and paid and then was charged the fee. I'm just wondering, and I yelled at my daughter because she shouldn't be buying a lunch if she doesn't have the money, and it wasn't a lunch, evidently there were snacks. I'm just wondering if there's any way that parents, there's some type of communication that can go on before a child starts going underneath what's in there, and I know, the law, you have to provide a lunch. I don't know, just my thoughts. So it's happened kind of twice, and I was just kind of alarmed that I'm not trying not to pay the bill. I just had no knowledge that it was going on without, me even knowing. So I then just wrote, like I said, I opted not to pay the check. I probably should have, because it's easier to go online. just a kind of a concern that's just about
I know what nutrition does is they certainly inform the students when they're starting to get close to a zero balance. That may not always make it home.
Of course.
And then what normally transpires is once there is a negative balance, then they will normally send something home with the child or send a letter home. This year it's become more complicated because they provide lunches. They continue to provide lunches. In fact, there's a larger uncollected balance this year that the program does have. But that is just the process. And then it'll probably change somewhat again next year due to the new legislation that's been passed by the state. So we're going to be working on trying to determine what the best way to provide ongoing notifications are. So your point is well taken. And we've already had initial conversations regarding that. And we're going to continue to have those over the summer.
Thank you.
Mrs. Van Cise, I'll add to that, as the parent here. Check your email, because I know I get pestered with notifications when my balance is running low. But secondly, I also thought my daughter was, maybe giving free lunches away, because it seemed like the balance was going down way too quickly. There is a spot in the portal that shows you a detail of what they bought. Not specifically, but it shows you
I see it.
so much on snacks, so much on lunch. So, and it shows you the date that each one occurs.
Oh, when she's buying her chocolate chip cookies.
Any other comments? Mrs. Beeger, go ahead.
I just want to comment on the actual makeup of the committee, because at first I noticed that the members were all administrators. And I found that interesting because it says that it represents district-wide and parental viewpoints. Then after reading, I saw that the district did reach out to the PTSA to look for some parent volunteers, which I thought was great, and that no one was willing to be part of it. My thought is that perhaps in the future, maybe the district can consider casting a wider net, because parents who are part of the PTSA council are likely PTSA council and on their PTA, and that message may not necessarily get back in time or to the PTAs, or maybe to a parent that doesn't attend PTA meetings but might have some background or thoughts in this and want to be involved in this work. I'm not saying that we should send out a survey to everyone. I don't know exactly those parameters, but it mentioned that you would reach out again in hope of some parent voice added to this committee. So maybe not just sticking with the PTSA council and reaching out to parents in other ways might be helpful.
That's a good idea.
Great, thank you. Dr. Martzloff, how about the Facilities Improvement Preservation Plan update, please?
Sure, the information is in your packet. Happy to answer any questions on any topic in there except for field lights. And wanted to make sure I reminded the board that our next board meeting, we will have a presentation on our initial thoughts for this next capital project. So, Mr. Lemay, I'm sure you have some field light questions, perhaps?
What are we doing on the focusing of them, and have we talked to the local residents and given them timelines and or how we're going to be shining the lights temporarily in their living rooms? Oh, we're not going to do that. I'm sorry.
Yes, we are doing that. It is ongoing work. It'll be going into June at least at each of our high schools. We brought in a consultant from out of town who's a national expert who does the lights. I believe it is at Angels Stadium in Anaheim, California. Is that correct, Mr. Machersky?
They've done the lights for the Super Bowl, and they've done the lights for Key Bank Center downtown. The lights that are currently at North High School were used in the last Super Bowl.
So they're very good at illuminating living rooms, and no, I'm just teasing. We are getting them adjusted, and we have let the neighbors at North High School and at East High School know about the ongoing process that's taking place.
Perfect. My second question on this was actually brought up to me in the fall, and I referred them to Mr. Matersky. Last Tuesday, a number of the Britannia Drive parents reapproached me again on it, and They were concerned with, apparently there's a link in the fence at East. The blueprints originally show the baseball diamond fence is supposed to go all the way over to the dugout, and basically the idea, I think, behind it was to prevent people from jumping the fence and using neighbors' yards for other necessities. Evidently, that link is still, apparently, there's one section that drops down to only a few feet, and now that we're in baseball season, it is being overly used that both coaches and students are jumping this link. So is there, with the repair plan here and the update plan here, is there any chance we can get that link fixed, either put up something temporarily or get back to the original blueprints and get the actual chain link that was supposed to be up there?
Yes, we've already fixed the fence, so it should stop this from happening, and we shouldn't have any more individuals being able to take advantage of that lower section of fence.
Amazing. Thank you. Moving on. There are no special needs or student activity matters to discuss this month. That brings us to the Committee of the Whole. Does anyone have a request or matter to discuss? Mrs. Beeger.
Sorry. Just a quick one. I have really enjoyed over the last few months going to visit different school visits and speak with different teachers, people filling different roles in the schools. And one of the things that has been interesting is talking to service providers, whether it be reading or teachers that work with ELL students. And I've noticed it seems like there's different amounts of need regarding students that may need support in reading, or the number of students that are English language learners, or even GT. I've just kind of been thinking about how we identify these needs and whether or not we are appropriately staffing to ensure that the services are not limited by our personnel, that we're appropriately distributing our people as best we can to make sure that our needs are more dictating the services than just, standard, we have this many people. So I'm curious at a later time if we might be able to get some more information just about how our, not necessarily classroom teachers, but those service providers are distributed. I'm thinking specifically of reading and math, just to ensure that we're doing the best we can. Thanks.
We can certainly do that at a future board date and have a presentation put together. Dr. Balin and I have already had some initial conversations, and we'll continue that as well with some others in the district to take a close look at it so that it makes sense for the needs that are present in all of our schools.
Perfect. Thank you. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Any other Committee of the Whole? Okay. We will now conduct our second public expression with the same rules and outlined in our first public expression. Anyone wishing to address the board should go to the podium. Sign in, please, at this time. I see.
Form a line, form a line.
Come on, behave now. Nobody there. We'll move on. Are there any correspondences to discuss? No, nothing. Would someone like to make a motion to meet in executive session to discuss employment matters relating to a particular person or persons, collective negotiations pursuant to Article 14 of the Civil Service Law, and other current litigation? Dr. Venator, thank you. Second. Mr. Meyer, thank you. All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Would someone like to make a motion to return to public session? Dr. Venator, thank you. Is there a second? Mrs. Van Cise, thank you. All in favor? Opposed, abstentions, motion carries unanimously. Would someone like to make a motion to rescind the administrative leave status effective June 1st, 2018 of the employee discussed in the immediate preceding executive session? Mr. Mecca, thank you. A second. Mr. Meyer, any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries 8-0-1. Our next board meeting will be June 12th, 2018 at 7 p.m., located here at District Office. Would someone like to make a motion to adjourn the regular board meeting? Dr. Renader, second. Mr. Meyer, any discussion? I think we need to discuss. All in favor? Opposed, abstentions, motion carries unanimously.